Welcome to my review of the Basher Nitro Circus Monster Truck 1/8 scale by Hobbyking. It's a pretty complex name. It's a pretty simple truck. I thoroughly put this thing through its paces. I ran it a lot in a lot of different conditions. I have a ton of footage which I will show you, or attempt to show you in this video. But first, let's have a look at how it looked new and not in such a thoroughly used state in which it is now. And then at the end of the video, I will tell you what I think of this truck. That's what I'm going to do. Alright, so this is what it looks like out of the box. You still have to apply these stickers. It has aluminum shock towers, which is nice because a lot of monster trucks have plastic ones. And it comes with braces, which work really well, actually. It has 17mm hexes, so a lot of aftermarket wheels will fit. It has the center diff underneath the chassis. All of the diffs are underneath the chassis. And here you can see the thickness of the A-arms and the drive shafts and the width that the truck has. Also, it comes with a nice skid plate / bumper, and it has full aluminum shocks. And you can see the motor. It's a pretty small can. Pretty standard servo that it comes with. It also comes with a rebranded Hobbyking ESC. There you can see those nice aluminum shocks, which do have threaded bodies. Here you can see the space that it has for batteries. You can run some pretty big batteries in there. And you can see the nice cover over the gearbox, which is very easily removed. The body mounts are pretty high up there. I do not mind that. They're very flexible, which makes them very strong and resistant to destruction. All right, let's look at some actual driving footage of this truck. Now, you'll notice that it has a blue body here, and that's because the original body is PVC and it's very fragile, and I knew it would shatter, so I opted to just use an old Proline body that had lying around to actually run it with to save that body, because it does look nice. All right, so it's a big hulking truck and it drives exactly as that. Here you'll see its top speed with an 18-tooth pinion. It's fast enough, it's not super fast. And here's a wheelie. So this thing doesn't do really aggressive wheelies, and they're not very easy to get. And that has to do with the fact that it has a lot of weight up front. This piece of footage, you'll see it on pavement and grass, which it obviously does great. And because of all that weight in the front, it will also not really do backflips off of jumps really easily. You can do it, but it's not easy. Front flips, however, if you like those, then have at it, because it's great at them. Here, this more terrain where it just does really well because it just has a ton of suspension travel and a lot of ground clearance, and that makes it fun. And despite that large amount of ground clearance, it really handles quite well for a monster truck. I mean, it's not like a Savage Flux where you're running after it to flip it back over all the time. It does flip over, but not as often. And yeah, its hulking large presence makes it fun to run. And it's relatively easy to work on, actually. It's a pretty simple design. The only thing that's a bit hard is getting to the center diff, even though it's right there. But the rest just comes apart really easily, which makes for a really nice wrenching experience. The tires on this thing are actually quite decent. They're softer than the first model, because I got the latest version from Hobbyking, and they work quite well for me. All right, let's have a look at some jumps. It jumps really well. It's stable in the air, and where it really excels is that it just soaks up those landings really well. And that's in comparison to the mini version of this truck. There you can see, it does do backflips. I think there's another one here. Yeah, but it's not easy to do. You need a very vertical ramp. So yeah, like I was saying, in comparison to its smaller mini Nitro Circus body brother, it soaks up the jumps really nicely, because that thing just bounced all over the place. You can see some nice slow-mo jumps. Okay, up until now, I hadn't broken anything, so I figured I'd give it more of a challenge and take it to the BMX track. And this is where you'll see that I'll start getting a little bit more air. And this is where one weakness did show itself, in that the shock fluid is pretty thin. Here you can see where I really start getting some air, and that causes it to slap the ground when it lands. That's a pretty easy fix, of course. Now, here I figured I'd give it even more of a challenge, and I brought it to the mountain bike park. And this is where things to me get crazy. I mean, this is not normal driving. It is tons of fun, and it is what the hobby is about, but I don't hold it against a truck if it breaks in these kind of circumstances. I'm not even showing you the crashes. But it did really well. I mean, it did break, but it didn't stop me from driving. It kept on driving. And that was just really impressive to me. One thing that will break is the chassis braces. I'll show you a little bit later. Because they are plastic, the ones that come with the truck, but there's an aluminum upgrade which fixes that completely. So that's a recommended upgrade. Right, so let's have a look at some crashes. Here I drove it off of the beginning of the BMX track, so it fell down quite a bit, and there was nothing wrong with it. Impressive. Here another nice nose landing. Ouch. And that's where those nice bumpers work quite well. Ouch. Oy. All right, let's have a look at what happened. Okay, so the body mount screw broke off. It still functioned, and that's a pretty easy fix. You can just run another screw all the way through it. The next thing is that the innards of the fan just ripped out because of the gravity or the gravitational forces working on it. G-forces, I should say. And the screw backed out of the other body mount as well. So yeah, I got to tighten those up. And the bumper broke. You see, it still functions, but it's just the top brace that did break. Let's see what else. Right, and like I said, the chassis brace. You can see where the plastic one here broke. All the others are aluminum. This is the only one that broke. So that's a very good upgrade that I would recommend. Here you can see the screw on the left. That's not supposed to be that kind of screw because it backed out. So yeah, you should thread lock. Final thoughts. Would I buy this truck again? Yes, I would. Now I got this on sale for 190 euros, which is insanely cheap. And it usually goes for 240, which is still cheap. I mean, considering that something like the Stampede 4x4, which is a 10-scaled truck, will cost you at least 400 euros. That's half. Something like a low C8 racing truggy, all upgraded up, will cost you something around 1,000 euros. An MT4, which is a cheap 1/8 scale truck, will cost you 500 euros, and if you want it in the upgraded form that I have, again, it's going to cost you 1,000. Something like the X-Max, which is a bigger truck and it does run a 6XS system, will cost you at least 800, but probably 1,000. A Vorza, again, between 600 and 700 euros. And the Mad Force will run you between 400 and 500. So it's either half to a quarter of some of these trucks, and it's not a whole lot worse. It's a good truck. One of the big differences is that this runs a 4S system, so it won't get you a ton of speed, but if you put a bigger pinion in it, it's fine actually, and it helps the durability, and it's still tons of fun. One negative is part support. You can get parts from Hobbyking, but sometimes they're out of stock, which is annoying. There are some other sources. In Europe, you have Conrad, which has the really bad boy. In the US, I think you have an Integy version or at least of the Truggy, so it's going to have some parts in common. So that does help. So if you can get parts, I say buy it. It's a really good truck for a very small price. And the only recommendations I have is get the aluminum chassis braces, get a different body that doesn't shatter, and get a bigger pinion to get a bit more speed out of it, but you don't have to put a different system in it because it's fun enough the way it is. So I hope that was useful. Have a very nice day. Yeah. These are my reviews. That's how I do them.
I'm headed straight for the castle. They wanna make me their queen. And there's an old